So right after my video about the first 3 minutes of In the Heights dropped, I ran off to go see the film in an advanced screening. I posted that video and then I just ran to my car.
3 hours later.
Oh my god. I cried so many times. That was amazing.
It was only after the screening that I found out that Warner Brothers had decided to release the first 8 minutes of the movie in its entirety on YouTube.
And left. Come on!
Even if you don't have HBO Max or don't want to go out to your local theater, you still have access to these first 8 minutes on YouTube. So I thought I would spend a moment to point out some of the cool things in those first 8 minutes that is a continuation of sorts of my first video about the first 3 minutes of the show. Just keep in mind, there is an infinite number of things to talk about. The way they shot it was absolutely amazing. And there are so many details, the people, the food, the dancing. But as I do on this channel, I'm going to focus on the musical aspects that I thought were really cool. These are 10 things about the first 8 minutes of In the Heights that you might not have noticed musically. And mild spoilers ahead. First of all, to be clear, we're not really talking about the first 8 minutes of the movie, but we're talking about the opening number. There's actually about 3 minutes of intro before that opening number, so really we're looking at the first 11 minutes of the movie. And in those first 3 minutes, we get a setup, which you can see in the trailer of the film. Usnavi is telling the story of the film to a bunch of kids on a beach. Now, this is part of a framing device that pops up again and again throughout the opening number. For example, when he's behind the counter of the bodega, we see a picture of that same beach, indicating that perhaps he fulfilled his dreams and ended up on that beach. There's even a line later on in the opening number saying, "One day I'll be on the beach with Sunny writing checks." Now that line is in the stage show, but the stage show never depicts the beach at all.
Usnavi is telling us the story and he's on the beach. So already fans of the original music are like...
So this is a very big difference, but I think one that really pays off in the end. In fact, I'm going to devote another video to just talking about that and how Graffiti Pete affects the ending of the movie. So please subscribe and stay tuned. As I said in my previous video, the 3/2 clave has a big role in this opening. If you don't know what the 3/2 clave is, it's basically this rhythm.
Lights up on Washington Heights and now the break of day.
But along with that rhythm, we also get this bass tone played on a C, and a general sense that it's part of the film's score and not just something that's leading into a song. Hell, even the neighbor spray hosing the sidewalk gets in on the 3/2 clave action. Indeed, this piece of bass and percussion music was taken directly from the finale of the stage show, where it can be heard underscoring this bit of dialogue.
Great sunlight this morning.
Yo, cuz, we fixed the grate.
What did I tell you about this punk?
On top of the 3/2 clave, we also get some chords. And again, this is scoring the scene, but it's also a reference to a song. The chords are going from a D flat to a C. This corresponds to a moment in the song Siempre, which Lin originally wrote to be sung by a character in the show, but later changed to be heard on a record player in the Rosario family household that they all sing along to. And as part of that family lore, there's a point in the song where the record skips and repeats itself, causing a loop. And this loop happens to happen on the words para siempre, which fittingly means forever. In fact, the very first piece of music we hear underneath the Warner Brothers logo is an instrumental version of Siempre, but in the 8-minute YouTube video, they skip the logo, so we just hear the echoes of Siempre in this chord progression. The chords underlining para siempre are D flat major and C major. So in this moment, when we hear the underscore playing a D flat major to C major progression, it's actually referencing another song in the show. Now, the recording of Siempre that's heard in the stage show and the film was sung by Doreen Montalvo, who tragically passed away in October 2020 at the young age of 56 of a stroke, but not before she was able to be immortalized in the film, singing not just Siempre, but also a part in Breathe. Lin actually tweeted this touching video of Doreen seeing her performance on screen for the first time. Now, she was integral to the development of In the Heights, playing a multitude of roles throughout its development, including Camila, Daniela, Abuela, until finally settling into an ensemble role. However, she was such a beloved member of the cast that they gave her ensemble role a name, Cuca. So I think it's interesting that when later on the salon ladies enter the bodega with 3 ladies as opposed to 2 in the Broadway show, the third one, who is an ostensibly new character, is named Cuca, possibly as an homage to Doreen Montalvo, who receives a nice in memoriam mural in the closing credits of the film. But back to Usnavi. As he's walking down the street, he stops after he steps on a piece of gum which is stuck to a manhole cover. This manhole cover, however, spins like a turntable, complete with a record scratch sound in the score. John M. Chu revealed that this idea was improvised on set and that the manhole cover didn't actually spin.
He just did that with his feet, and our VFX team created an amazing spinning turntable there.
And I really love this because I think it underlies the idea that
the streets were made of music.
Next, we get some characters introduced, and along with them, some musical motifs in the show. The Piragua guy says, "Ice cold piragua," which is later musicalized as Piragua, Piragua, no block of ice piragua. Abuela Claudia says her catchphrase, "Paciencia y fe," which she actually musicalizes in the opening number. Every day, paciencia y fe. Until the day we go from poverty to stock up. And then later turns into the song. Paciencia y fe. When the salon ladies show up, they say their catchphrase, "No me diga," which turns into the song No me diga. No me diga. I know. And when Kevin enters, he says his catchphrase, "Good morning," which is repeated throughout the show, but also transforms in a really interesting way, which I will get to when I make a video specifically about Kevin's character. Perhaps the most important of these leitmotifs that is introduced is the one between Vanessa and Usnavi. You owe me a bottle of cold champagne. Are you moving? Now, we first heard this chord progression in the opening radio montage, which I described last time as a modern overture, but we heard it as the fast pop piano version. Now here, we see it represent Vanessa more specifically, and you can hear the pop piano riff slowed down. Delete some of it and slow it down, and you get this, which is what you hear in the scene. You owe me a bottle of cold champagne. Are you moving? Later, this moment is brought back in the song Champagne. I owe you a bottle of cold champagne. No. In both of these cases, it's even in the same key. D major, G, B minor, A major. Perhaps the most memorable use of this motif and chord progression is Vanessa's Want song, It Won't Be Long Now. The elevated train by my window doesn't face me anymore. Also in the key of D. In the stage show, part of the opening number consisted of Usnavi using stage manager language, as I mentioned in the previous video. For example, the lyric where Usnavi used to say, "Turn up the stage lights," has now been changed to "Turn up the street lights." Yet, because of the framing device, Usnavi is still the narrative driver of this film, and one of the reminders of this is when he brings up Kevin Rosario. Next up, ding, Kevin Rosario, and redundantly says the bell ding as it happens. Later, Usnavi also creates a bell ding when he winks at the audience as he's helping a woman on the street with directions. Now, this woman actually changes the song a little bit because she's the one who utters the phrase, "I've never been north of 96th Street." As I discussed in the previous video, back in the stage show, Usnavi said this as a playful jab at the Broadway audience. But to adapt this into the visual language of film, it's now said by this woman, who is ostensibly part of the forces of gentrification that are threatening Washington Heights. Indeed, in the closing credits, she's labeled as a hipster. Last time I called Lin a synthesizer because he's able to incorporate disparate musical influences from musical theater, hip-hop, and Latin music into one cohesive sounding aesthetic. In the latter half of the opening number, Lin actually pays tribute with 3 direct references, one from each general area of influence. The most obvious of these is the musical theater reference. We already talked about Take the A Train last time, but Lin also includes a second musical theater reference from Kiss Me Kate.
It's too darn hot. It's too darn hot.
And he even name checks its composer, Cole Porter.
And oh my God, it's gotten too darn hot, like my man Cole Porter said.
Next, Lin gives a nod to hip-hop, more specifically Dr. Dre's song Still Dre, which features these rolled chords. And we hear this right when Benny enters the bodega. Which is kinda cool because Corey Hawkins played Dr. Dre in Straight Outta Compton. And third, we get a nod to Latin music, specifically Rihanna's Pon De Replay, whose dancehall reggae beat Lin imitates for Vanessa's entrance. Finally, we get to one of the biggest changes in the opening number and in the entire story, so spoilers, but Kevin is now a single father. In a later scene, it was revealed that Camila actually passed away, and so when he enters Usnavi's bodega, he's by himself and all the lines are rearranged to fit this new reality. For example, instead of Camila being the one who was cooking all week,
This one's been cooking all week.
Slavi, come over for dinner. There's plenty to eat.
now it's Abuela.
Sweet, Abuela's been cooking all week.
Come by when I see you this weekend.
All we gonna eat.
Now there are quite a few changes to Kevin's arc throughout the film, which I will talk about in a separate video all about Kevin Rosario. Alright, that's it for now, but believe me, we are just getting started here talking about In the Heights. So please subscribe and stay tuned. Thank you so much to my patrons, especially my newest patron, Yun Vire, and I'll see you next time. Peace.